going into my 11th season coaching the women's basketball team, and the weekly day-to-day is practices and making sure the athletes have all the supports they need to be successful student athletes. I knew I would always coach and give back to the sport because I really loved it, and I did a lot of sports growing up, but I always use the line right place, right time, and I just happened to be around the university at the time that there was a coaching change. I was very fortunate that I had a lot of great coaches growing up. I think when you're first starting coaching, you want to take those great qualities and really trying to make yourself a melting pot of that. I feel like it really came into my own after I became a mom and just was able to tap into my own confidence and things that I knew that I brought to the table that might be a bit different. I'd say I'm really focused on making sure each athlete has a really positive experience. It's really important to keep having fun, and albeit there's a lot to do around that, but that's a big philosophy. And then just making sure that they are able to give back to whatever capacities that they grow in university, whether that be their professional communities, whether that be their family communities, or the sport community. If you had asked me a month before if I could envision myself in Paris, it would have been insane. That's that comfort zone. Like I had so many people around me that knew what I had kind of evolved to as a coach and knew my previous experience, but also kind of knew where I was at. And they're just like, you have to say yes to this. I said yes. And then it was just, put your head down, do the work, and make sure you're as ready and as prepared as possible to make it a great experience for the athletes. And it was pretty cool to kind of just sit back. We had a couple of days in the village before everything got started. And it was really good in hindsight because it allowed me to really be in that moment and really enjoy it. It was great. So in terms of the rules, it's almost the exact same. In terms of lines, points, time, fouls. With the FIBA rules, it's all the exact same. The biggest difference is athletes are given a classification number between 4.5 and 1 every half increment, and you can have a total of 14 points on the floor at a time. So in terms of your lineups and how you can use players, there's different limitations. And the numbers are assigned based on their physical abilities. So other than that, everything is pretty much the same. So within that strategy of lineups and also using people's strengths, you develop different systems. The same way you would take your strengths and weaknesses in running basketball or stand-up basketball and apply it to a tactical game plan. One of the coolest parts about the whole experience was after our first game being televised, and like my basketball community and coaches and friends and alumni and my players at the university just texting and the physicality of the game and the pace of the game. So I'm like, okay, let's just go into the tournament. Let's just try to win a pool game to really give ourselves, a buildup of success for that crossover in the quarterfinal. And we played fairly well versus China in that first game. And then the expectation and the emotion just kind of grew and grew and grew. And we were so focused in like our pool play. We just kept on getting better. We had moments of like when you feel that click. And then we played pretty well versus the Netherlands in the semifinal. And for us to have done that, again, I didn't have context, but they hadn't played that competitively versus them in a while. So for us to be able to feel that, and then just the emotion of being so close and trying to manage the emotions in that 36-hour period was a lot. And it was that, we went into that game, you're like, man, I hope that we can kind of just push through that wall of the letdown of not making it to the gold medal game. And it just lingered for too long. So it was one of those things that in the moment, it was like so hard to accept because you're like, we're that close to getting a medal. And we had internally had that goal, hopefully change their perspective on what being part of that national team group can look like and feel like and be like. But there's still that lingering disappointment of like, we are very, very close to a medal. I had so many people remind me how cool it was that it was really easy to take a moment at least once a day to be like, okay, this is really cool. And this is the top end of sport. But I think also too, a lot of it had to do with France did a phenomenal job of hosting. By all accounts that I've heard, I obviously this is my first Paralympics. It was the best Paralympics by far in terms of just people following it, there being interest, the competitiveness of it. So I think that was, for me, to not have all of that experience, to know that I got to take part in that is really cool. Overall, the experience for me was just the reality of the cool places that you can go with this profession. I know that sounds really corny, but me and my husband were having a good laugh about it. Like the fact that I was at Paralympics and we had talked about this summer just being about like a chill summer at home. The power of just saying yes to when you're uncertain of scenarios or you feel a little not as confident or experienced. I have yet to say yes to something that I don't feel overly prepared for that I have regretted. So I think that's been a big takeaway. And when you have athletes that just believe in you, like they really didn't have to. That was athlete. Like I had minimal experience and they just believed that I would work hard enough to get to where I needed to be. And to have that buy-in happen within 4 months was pretty incredible. So I think there's a lot to be said when you're talking about sitting down, preparing for what is the university season. Like if you have the athletes bought in and they're ready to have a good time, you can get through a lot of like the technical stuff and the difference in funding and all of that other stuff. It doesn't really matter when you have a group that's on the same page and enjoying what they're doing. I walked in like off the plane, had a good night's sleep, and then we had practice the next day, and we're at the center circle before practice, and they're like, "Are you good?" I was like, "I'm good. I'm really good. I'm locked in. I'm ready to go." And the first drill goes, and it's just, I think it's just a more sense of calm. The things that I think you stress about when you're a bit younger or less experienced, they kind of like amp you up every day. And I immediately felt that. I felt like everything was doable. People talk about like their dream job and all of these things. And I truly have done all of these things with none of that. Like I have never thought about where I want to be. It's just like trying to maximize the opportunity in front of me. So honestly, I can say no. Like I just think that it has opened my mind to knowing that there are so many transferable skills from the university context or from the sport context in general. Like there's so many transferable skills, but just staying open to opportunities that present themselves as opposed to like chasing this what you think is. I think it was solidified for me in this experience, and just trying to really enjoy what I'm doing right now is kind of the key. Say yes to the things that you don't think you're qualified for. Show up to the things that you don't have any experience with, especially in sport. But I think this is any profession when you're first starting out. Everyone wants help. Everyone needs help. Everyone will take support. So if you find something that you're super intrigued by and you go in with like a learning mindset and you're willing to kind of put yourself out there, I think you can pretty much do whatever you want, and then it evolves for you, right? I think not having that mindset of like you have to have the same path that I had. It's like you'll have your own path. I think that's a big one, because sometimes we fixate on what we see others doing as what is now our goal, but you just get into that comparison mindset all the time, and it's not as satisfying. It's one of the biggest reflections that I had on the travel day back was like, what am I going to take that's tangible, that will be relatable from this experience for the university athletes? And I think the one big one is like relationships matter. So like putting time into like relationships to like build with your teammates, whether you face-to-face agree with them or you think that you'll get along with them, just taking time to get to know people and putting time into that relationship. Putting time and effort into building a relationship with the people that help you every day. So your coaches, your support staff, your academic advisors, those people. And then ultimately, like, I've used this since day one. This is something my dad told me, was the relationship of people that you don't think are influencing your experience that are. So like the janitor, for example, at the gym, like make sure that they know that you know they're there. I think it's really easy in a stressful environment to like, get in your lane, get your tunnel vision, but there's so many people that are genuinely just trying to help you out. And if they know that you know that, it usually just expands into this really awesome experience where you actually get probably more out of all the resources that you have than you otherwise would have. So yeah, I think it's like putting time and effort into relationships and making sure that you're showing that appreciation and that gratitude goes a really long way.